Today, we are going on an adventure to one of the most mysterious and remote places on our entire planet. Imagine a tiny, lonely island in the middle of the vast, endless Pacific Ocean. This island is hundreds of kilometers away from any other piece of land. It is so isolated that it feels like a tiny speck in a huge blue desert of water. This place is called Easter Island. It covers an area of about 63 square miles. For centuries, this island was a secret, hidden from the rest of the world. Nobody knew it existed until the year 1722. But when it was finally discovered, what people found there was absolutely astonishing. They found an island surrounded by hundreds of giant stone statues, all staring out at the sea. Who built these massive figures? Why were they built? And perhaps the biggest mystery of all, why did the people who built them suddenly vanish, leaving their work unfinished? Our story begins 300 years ago, in 1722. The unexpected discovery. European explorer named Jacob Roggeveen was sailing across the Pacific Ocean. For days, he and his crew saw nothing but water. Then, on April 5th, 1722, they spotted land. It was an island no European had ever seen before. Because they discovered it on Easter Sunday, they named it Easter Island. As Roggeveen's ship got closer, he couldn't believe his eyes. Lining the coast of the island were enormous statues carved from stone. They were towering, scary-looking figures with long faces, sharp features, and serious expressions. They were incredibly well made, showing amazing skill. Roggeveen naturally thought that a large, advanced civilization must live on the island to create such impressive art. He expected to meet a great crowd of people. But when he and his crew went ashore, they found something very different. The island was almost empty. Besides a few hundred nervous islanders, there was no great city, no large army, and no team of master sculptors. Just these silent, giant stone figures, some standing tall, others lying broken on the ground. The people living there called their island Rapa Nui. They were friendly, but were not the powerful empire Roggeveen had imagined. The biggest shock was that these people had no idea who built the statues or why. The statues were already ancient history to them. The secret of the giants was lost in time. This was the start of one of the world's greatest archaeological mysteries. The isolated wonder. To understand why this is such a puzzle, you need to understand just how alone this island is. Its closest neighbor is an uninhabited island, only 290 miles, 275 kilometers away. The nearest island with people has a population of about 500 and is 1616 miles, 2,600 kilometers away even. Though it belongs to Chile, the mainland of Chile is 2,182 miles, 3,512 kilometers away. Today, the only practical way to get there is by a 5-hour flight from Chile. Now imagine trying to reach this place hundreds of years ago in a simple wooden boat. It was nearly impossible. The people who first settled there were truly cut off from the entire world. The mysterious statues, the Moai spread across the island, are nearly 1,000 of these statues. The locals call them Moai, pronounced Moai. Almost all of them look similar. They have very long noses, sharp chins, flat heads, and long ears. Some have deep holes for eyes, where the creators might have placed coral or rock to make them look real. Others were left without eyes. They are not smiling or happy. They look very stern and powerful, like chiefs or gods. Experts believe the carving of these Moai began around the 13th century. About 700 years ago, for a long time, everyone only saw the heads. The most famous photos show rows of giant heads sticking out of the ground. But in 2012, archaeologists did a dig. They made a breathtaking discovery. The heads were not just heads. They were attached to huge, massive bodies buried underground. The statues were actually full-length figures, many with detailed carvings on their backs. One of these unearthed statues was 33 feet tall, as high as a 2-story building, and weighed a staggering 90,000 kilograms, 198,000 lbs. That's as heavy as 14 adult elephants. Just moving something that heavy an inch would be a huge task, let alone dragging it for miles across the island. And then there is the biggest one of all. The island's volcano has a statue that was never finished. It was simply abandoned, still connected to the rock it was being carved from. If it had been completed, experts estimate it would have been 70 feet tall and weighed over 300 tons. It is truly unimaginably large. How were they moved? The great experiment. This leads to the first big question. How did they move these giants? Carving the statues from volcanic rock was hard enough, but then they had to move them from the quarry, the carving site, to different points all around the island's coast, sometimes over 10 miles away. How did they do this without modern machines, wheels, or even large animals to help? For many years, people were so baffled that they joked aliens must have helped. But modern science has found a much simpler and more brilliant answer. Archaeologists noticed something about the many statues that had fallen over during transport. All the statues that fell on an upward slope were lying on their backs. All the ones that fell on a downward slope were found face down. This was a major clue. It suggested the statues were being moved in a standing upright position, not lying down. They would fall on their backs when going uphill and on their faces when going downhill. A team of researchers decided to test a theory. They made a concrete copy of a moai. Then, they tied ropes around it. One team pulled from the front, and two teams used ropes on the sides and back to rock the statue from side to side. With a coordinated walking motion, rocking it left, right, and forward, they were able to walk the giant statue across the field. With just 18 people and 3 ropes, they moved the multi-ton statue hundreds of feet. This experiment showed that the ancient people of Rapa Nui were not superhuman. They were incredibly smart. They used basic physics and teamwork to make the impossible possible. They literally walked the statues across the island. The tragic mystery, why did they vanish? Now we come to the saddest and most important mystery. If these people were so clever and organized, what happened to them? Why did they suddenly stop and disappear, leaving tools scattered and statues half-carved in the quarry? The answer is a powerful warning from history. When the first Polynesian settlers arrived on Rapa Nui around 1,700 years ago, the island was not the grassy, open place it is today. It was a paradise. It was covered in a thick, lush forest, including huge palm trees. These settlers were farmers. To make room for their villages and crops, they began cutting down the trees. They also needed wood for many other things, to build fishing boats to catch deep-sea fish, for firewood to keep warm and cook food, as rollers and levers to help move the massive Moai statues. For generations, the tree cutting seemed fine. The population grew and they built more and more magnificent Moai, but slowly, a disaster was happening. They were cutting down trees much faster than new ones could grow. Eventually, the last tree was cut down. This was a catastrophe. Without trees, they could no longer build boats, so they could no longer catch deep-sea fish, losing a major food source. The soil, no longer held together by tree roots, washed away when it rained. The land became barren and farming became very difficult. There was no more firewood. Food became incredibly scarce. The society that had built giant statues in peace began to break down. The different clans on the island started fighting each other desperately over the few remaining resources. Archaeologists have found many human bones from this time with terrible injuries, proving there was violent warfare. It seems women were often targeted, which made it impossible for families to have children and rebuild the population. The very thing they were most proud of, the Moai, may have caused their downfall. The competition to build bigger and better statues likely used up the island's precious resources faster than anything else. In the end, the people fell into a terrible war, and their society collapsed. The population dropped dramatically. The survivors eventually gave up. They stopped building the Moai, abandoning the half-finished giants in the quarry. They left behind a broken ecosystem and a silent, mysterious landscape. The lesson of Easter Island today: Easter Island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a major tourist attraction. We look at these incredible stone figures with awe, wondering about the people who made them. Were the Moai statues of important chiefs? Were they gods watching over the people? Were they a way for different clans to show their power? We may never know the full religious reason, but we do know the story of their civilization. Easter Island is a small, perfect example of what can happen to our entire planet if we don't take care of our resources. It shows us that no matter how clever or advanced a society is, it cannot survive if it destroys its own environment. It is a story of incredible human achievement, but also a tragic story of human failure. The giants of Easter Island stand as a silent reminder to us all. I hope you found this story fascinating. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up and share it with your friends. That's all for today. See you very soon in the next video.